And we're live. Welcome everybody to the virtual e-tourism summit. We're on Tuesday of our third week, and it's been an incredible conversation over the course of the last 13 or so days. And I want to thank everybody for your participation and your active engagement over the course of what is a very different e-tourism summit this year. I'm excited to be with you live from the first live event. I think probably the last live event in the tourism industry pre-COVID was the Connect Travel Marketplace, and back in February when we were in Kissimmee with President Barack Obama, and it was really kicking off 2020 on a high note, and now we've been gone for months and months and months. But I'm actually here in Orlando at the Marriott. We're Connect Meetings has 1,000 people here. Doing live one-on-one appointments, trying to get the meeting business back together. And I wanted to take a second to thank our sponsor of our opening reception last night, Visit Tampa Bay. So Patrick, thank you for that. It was great to see Santiago and your team here. I think it's just so important how important sponsors are to getting these events off the ground. So Patrick, thanks to you and your team. I really appreciate it. And Rachel, with that in mind, same thing with virtual. These events cannot continue without the real incredible support of our partners. And I would like to thank you and Nativo, and just tell you how much we appreciate your support and helping get this great content out to our industry. And with that, I'll turn it over to you if you'd like to kind of give us a little background and let us know what Nativo's up to.
Sure. Thanks, Will. Yeah, I mean, it's great to be here, albeit virtually. Last eTourism in 2019 was actually Nativo's first. And, we went up to San Francisco and we had a great time. And we're excited to be back. And, just to give everyone a little bit of background on what we do at Nativo, we're essentially a content technology platform that works with brands in the tourism space, automotive, pharma, and a bunch of other verticals to help brands like yours identify, measure, and distribute content at scale. We do this by partnering with publishers across the web and helping people to really just amplify their stories. So at Nativo, I am our resident head of tourism. So that means that I help to oversee all of the travel business that is incoming in our database and in our network. And I also manage some of those myself. So that's a little bit about us, and we're just excited to be here.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to have these conversations virtually. I'm really looking forward to what I understand will be a much smaller group, but November 9th and 10th in Orlando, we're going to have our live version of eTourism Summit, and that's going to be great to be able to physically see people together. You can viscerally tell that people were smiling last night behind their masks, and everybody, this is 100% all masked. We have to get temperature check to get in, but it's great. I mean, you could see the smiles through the masks, and that was something that was great to have. So talking about smiles and kind of today's topic of how we can market to travelers in this era of really challenging, weird times, and how we can get people to act. We've heard some great research over the course of the last 14 days or so that, it's so important to get somebody, out of the house to a restaurant, then out of the house to maybe in a local attraction before they're going to start traveling. And it's my contention that we're always going to be more likely to travel when we're passionate about something. And certainly we're most passionate about our family and friends. And that's got probably clearly the first round of travel away from home. But then there's other real passion points. And Patrick, just in our conversations earlier, it just seems to me that what's happening in Tampa with the Stanley Cup, with the World Series, and now you have the Super Bowl coming to town. I mean, sports is a huge passion point, and I think most of us in tourism marketing have long said that youth sports especially are almost recession proof because we're going to support our kids. And I just wanted to see kind of where that sports and passion and there's been more energy out of sports in Tampa Bay than probably ever before. New quarterback. I mean, a lot of excitement. Unfortunately, you're not able to monetize it this year. But
Yeah, that is a little bit of a challenge, but it is, you bring up a fair point there, Will. Sports are a great example of something that's led by emotions. We have our teams, and they are our teams sometimes for the most bizarre reasons, but they do instill a certain level of emotion, a certain level of excitement. Youth sports, as you said, is huge. Also, the some of the adult leagues, the traveling baseball leagues and so on are also big. But yeah, to win a Stanley Cup, to be going to the World Series, to be hosting a Super Bowl, it's a great time to be in Tampa right now for sports.
Clearly, a lot of great brand positioning that these teams are giving you and the community. So I did introduce Rachel. I kind of introduced Patrick. Scott, would you like to kind of tell us a little bit about who you are and your background as we kind of jump into this conversation about you've been right in the middle of it for a long time.
Sure, you bet. And good afternoon, and I guess good morning to some of you, perhaps. And Will, thanks for having me participate in this. This is great. I'm Scott Rose. I am the Chief Marketing Officer for Zoo Tampa. Again, excited about the sports happening in Tampa. I've really been in the attractions industry my whole career. Spent a long time with SeaWorld and Busch Gardens, both out in California as well as in Orlando, Tampa. I spent the last 8 years or so with the Florida Aquarium in downtown Tampa, and the last year here at Zoo Tampa. So I really, kind of love this business of being in the attractions world, particularly attractions that have animals surrounding us, wildlife. It's just a great business to be in. So hopefully I can share a little bit about the business and what we've been going through here during the webinar today.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. It's crazy. I guess we've worked together for now 12 years or 13 years.
That's right.
Amazing. And Richard, I as the CEO of the U.S. Cultural Heritage Marketing Council, that is all about passion and what people love to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Will, again, and to the rest of our assembled group here, and to Rachel for being our sponsor. The opportunity to really bring together the balance of, and really the blend of, culture, heritage, history, culinary, sports, agritourism, entertainment, street festivals, farmers markets, bourbon trail, wine trail, all those cultural experiences across the United States and our territories are really, beloved not only by our global traveler, which right now is on a long pause, as we know, and slowly coming back, but really to the local and regional communities. So, over the last several decades, I've had the pleasure of, working, in the DMO, space and doing some really great destination marketing, programs and events, in my field, but also I've been on the hotel side. I've worked, on property and, helped with hotel grand openings and doing global sales for a couple chains. So, being able to sit down with community leaders and cultural attractions, is really exciting because, the last part of my career before launching my business, several years ago and taking the helm of the U.S. Cultural Heritage Marketing Council was really focusing on the museum space, working, at the California Academy of Sciences here in San Francisco for many, many years, but also working with other cultural institutions around the globe. So I've been to your zoo and aquarium there a few times in Tampa there, Scott. So I know it very well. So yeah, there's just certainly a blend of passion that comes with it. But I think, as you said, Will, people are now, saying, I'm going to try this locally and experience it. So it's really, as in our mantra as an organization, is it's culture closer to home for the next foreseeable future.
One of the conversation that's been a pretty regular thread over the course of the kind of first half of Eat Tourism Summit this year is this concept that we as consumers have certainly changed, right? Our buying habits have changed, our research habits have changed, our whole lives have kind of been upended, working from home, teaching kids from home, Zoom schools, everything's changed. And as a result, there's a lot of talk that people are their consumer travel behavior is going to change. Certainly the planning process has kind of been turned on its head. As they say, it's no longer a funnel, but more like a maze. But what's really interesting to me is this concept that we as consumers are going to prioritize our travel. Maybe that fast trip in and out to try to see all the hot spots may not be the thing. It may be more intentional travel. And to me, kind of intentional travel and kind of passion points really kind of go hand in hand. I'm going to slow down and have a little bit, enjoy the meal rather than hurry up and rush it to get to the next place. And Richard, I don't know if you're hearing that from, your partners, because you have partners across all that. And are they planning, should marketers be planning to kind of address consumers in a different way as a result?
Yes. Across the spectrum on the national landscape, depending upon where you are in the country, there seems to be this push, and the destination marketing organizations, what I'm also seeing, rather than working individually, they're working regionally. And I'm sure that Patrick may be able to speak to that a little bit as well, that, this collective effort to rise above the tide and knowing that they can't stand alone, because unfortunately in some spaces, the marketing efforts were diminished so much due to the loss of funding and, as we know, dollars in the budgets of both destination marketing organizations and state tourism boards, that collectively doing it together, does make sense, at least, in the short term, which means probably for the next 12 to 18 months, and sorting out, what that brand intention is as consumer sentiment continues to ebb and flow. And especially going into the holiday season, people are really looking at those closer to home experiences, and the marketing around that is definitely been repositioned. Dollars that were normally going to international spend are now 100, really 95% pushed into regional / local spend, just to ensure that they can convert whoever they can convert as quickly as they possibly can, not just for hotel stays, which is really critical as hotels reopen, but certainly, as we're saying, all the attractions and other programs going on.
Patrick, do you want to kind of piggyback on that, on the community regional stuff, and kind of how Visit Tampa Bay has taken some of that to, and really your marketing efforts and your partnerships and promotions are a lot bigger than they ever were.
Well, I think they have to be. I think, excuse me, Tampa's always been in a very fortunate position in that, in some ways unfortunate, but some ways fortunate. We've always worked closely with some of our surrounding communities, especially internationally. We work with Visit St. Pete Clearwater a lot, and also with Bradenton, because they both have great beaches and we don't. So it's been a great way of collaborating to show that we have the city and then they have, some of the beaches and other attractions. What this opportunity of the last few months has done, and one of the first things we did was put together a coalition of about 10 to 12 different DMOs, all in the west part of Gulf Coast of Florida. Everything from Hernando County all the way down to Naples, which, for those who aren't in Florida, that's quite a drive. So there's about 10 of us. We get together every week. We talk through issues. We talk about where we should be going to market. What issues are we seeing? What's working? I just think that moving forward, that's going to be a great way for us all to continue stretching budgets. We can do campaigns together, which we are in the middle of putting together a campaign right now with 4 different DMOs where the brand will all look similar, but then we will use imagery from each individual DMO's area. So we can push people back to anywhere within the area. So if they give 2 days with me and then 4 days in St. Pete or 3 days somewhere else, that's fine. But we've got to work together to get those people out there. And going back into that really being more of a lower funnel access, we know there's only so many people are looking to travel right now from outside of the area. So if we can put together and combine to give, a perception and the emotions that people need to get them traveling, then that's a better way to do it, we feel.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say, I'd like to kind of build on that theme there of collaboration. And, in the attractions industry has always been fairly collaborative for the most part, anyhow. We have common co-op ticket products like City Pass and other individual co-op ticket products. But during this pandemic, the attractions industry, particularly in Florida here, has really come together to help each other out. Everything was new to everybody, and a lot of learnings were had during the course of this, particularly as we attempted to reopen. Most of the attractions in Florida shut down mid-March, and we're fortunate enough to reopen around the end of May, beginning of June. And all of us had to go and put together a reopening modified operations plan and take it to the local governmental agencies and also to the state to be approved to reopen. So through the umbrella of the Florida Attractions Association, all of the 125 attractions work together on helping each other build their reopening plans, and that is spurring much greater cooperation and co-op programs among all of those in this industry.
Yeah, Scott, when you talk about that, again, it kind of in the tourism world we're in today, once you get people out and doing something, going to an attraction, that is just increasing that comfort level, seeing how you can travel and do those experiences safely.
Yeah.
The fact that there is cooperation makes a ton of sense. And I think, as Patrick brought up the concept of kind of going more lower funnel, kind of the more likely travelers, people that have a reason to go out and travel and not trying to just play the inspiration, art, culture, shopping, dining, fun for the whole family game. I think it makes a lot of sense. I know, Rachel, you've been seeing your clients talking a lot about, could you give us an example of how you've kind of shifted business down into the lower funnel and lower end of the funnel and the success that they've had?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's an interesting time for travel in the sense that we're not necessarily looking at the same, booking lead times or booking windows than we've ever seen before. We're seeing the people that want to go on a trip tomorrow. We're seeing the people that might not want to go anywhere until the summer of 2021 and beyond. And so for us, what we've seen a lot of right now is a lot of our clients really focusing on a phased approach to, leveraging marketing and leveraging messaging right now. We have a lot of clients that are right now doing exclusively lower funnel messaging, driving people to their sites so that they can hopefully catch those travelers that need to travel again right now, the people that are going to visit their families after, the past several months of being home, or the people that are just ready to get out and feeling comfortable with the safety and security protocols that airlines have in place, hotels, what have you. That said, what we're also trying to encourage brands to do and destinations to do is not just focus on, getting whoever we can get in 2020, but also focusing on how we can inspire the people that need inspiration right now most to start planning those Q1 trips, those Q2 trips. They might be longer, as we said, we talked about slow travel. And so that's going to be a really big value add for destinations, getting those people that want to stay for a week, 2 weeks, a month, even to do a workcation somewhere else. So, I think for that, we are seeing sort of the lower funnel messaging now combined with, starting to think about content, articles, videos. How can we get sort of that inspiration so that we can start filling that funnel again for the people that are not quite ready, but have travel on their minds. And I say that because, one of the things that we've really noticed and observed over the past few months is I think it's pretty common knowledge that everybody's sort of on their phones more and everyone's consuming more content now because we're all home, right? We're all working from home. A lot of us are, I still am. And, a lot of people are consuming more news than they ever have before because there's so much going on. And when we think about the spike in content consumption that we've observed, we've also on our end, as we've been observing, the publishers that we work with, we noticed a sharp spike in content consumption, about 25% higher on average than before COVID. And that continues on until now. And so there's a big appetite there, even for the people that aren't ready to go somewhere tomorrow. And I think that's really the importance of why content is still essential, even when we're focusing on the lower funnel objectives right now.
Well, I thank you, one, for bringing the theme of this year's eTourism Summit front and center, 21 days focused on winning in 2021, because it's true. I think you also hit on one of the themes that has come out over the course of the last couple of weeks, and that's the booking time frame and even the marketing planning time frame. One is, we're dealing with near term is a weekend in, and long term is maybe 6 months out. In terms of how we're thinking about things, and also how consumers are acting. The same conversation came up. The booking window is either within the week or for the week or 6 months and out. So we're dealing in a really interesting reality I don't think tourism marketers have had to do. And speaking of messages that get somebody out of the house and to activate, again, kind of goes back to some of those really important kind of consumer trends that have evolved over the course of the last 6 or 8 months. And I'd love to hear from Scott and Richard, just both of you, of kind of what kind of activity, in terms of a booking window for local attractions you're seeing. Is it spur of the moment, or is it are people really planning and doing a lot of research and homework? To give you a personal example, I was going to rent a boat with my family, get together on the weekend and go out. Bad weather in the Gulf, so we shifted. Did a little bit of homework, went to the Tallahassee Museum and did the zip line course, which was awesome. I thought it was the zip line course, but it's more like I don't know. It felt to me more like an obstacle course. It was exhausting. It beat me up. But are you, Scott, seeing people booking right away, or are they planning ahead and really being meticulous about their visits?
Well, what's interesting, Will, is that it's obviously changed behavior as it relates to visiting your local attraction. Partly because people have to book reservations now. For the most part, most attractions are reservation-based. Some are time ticketing, but a lot of them aren't. We're not time ticketing, but we do offer reservations for daily visits. When we first and we have limited attendance capacities. So when we first reopened, people were booking pretty far out because they wanted to, make sure they got a reservation, not knowing how many we were going to have offer out for any particular day. As we've gone through time, that has shifted a little bit because, people now realize that they can more so walk up and they don't need reservations as much as when we first reopened. So that time frame is changing. The other interesting thing, though, with reservations, and we kind of stumbled into this, we've never had reservation-based tickets in the past, but what it does is it gets people to your website, in advance of their visit. And once you get people to the website, you have the opportunity to sell them on, the preferred ticket of choice that we want them to purchase. So we put into place a membership campaign and a nice offer, and moved a lot of people up into memberships that otherwise would have walked up and bought a ticket at our ticket window. But because they went online, we had the opportunity to upsell. We upsell, signature encounters, which are special encounters with animals in the park in advance. We get them prepared to come here to dine with us and shop with us. So our admission per caps and our food and beverage per caps and retail per caps are through the roof right now. And it's all because of the reservation-based system and getting people online, and you have the opportunity to upsell.
That's a fascinating point, because you do have to get more information. You have to dig a little bit deeper before you just go show up somewhere. That's really, really interesting. So the web traffic and using this to get more information and upsell is a huge opportunity. Are you seeing that with your partners, Richard?
Yes. The landscape has really been that of with the new protocols in place, as Rachel was saying, the intent, for slow travel, local travel, or those that are willing to venture a little bit more with the online booking, organizations and, ticketing APIs that are out there for the cultural attractions and venues to regional parks, et cetera. There's the capacity. So pre-booking is required for everyone. What we're also seeing nationally is all museums, even for their members need to make a reservation. It is timed entry. There are a few exceptions to that. In some spaces, examples, that I could, share would be like the San Diego Zoo. It's free flow. They're not doing capacity controls, but there's other other things that are moving targets based upon what's happening with flare-ups and hotspots. So while it might be 30 to 35% capacity for some institutions and venues today, if they see a tick up in cases, well, they may not close, they just reduce capacity. So they have more distancing. So people are still willing to come. So yeah, the time ticketing is critical because that's the only way these institutions that are now staffing differently, staffing smartly, operationally trying to maintain their budget lines. Remember, it's also about profitability, in these organizations to actually make payroll. And, as the other, CARES Act and other relief monies have dried up or have been used, this is their only way to maintain keeping their doors open. So certainly what we're seeing is that, that local market, even for the membership base, it must be a reservation most of the time, because at the end of the day, there's only so much space in these brick and mortar locations. And once you get into that enclosed space, airflow is a concern, distance is a concern, frequency of cleaning and sanitation is a concern. So they have the protocols down. The American Alliance of Museums, IAPA, the various, the zoos and aquariums associations, everybody has been working really, really hard to ensure that everyone feels safe. But it's been a best practice that has worked and continues to evolve as we look at, some of the larger venues now, especially here in California, the theme parks reopening hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. Hey, piggybacking on what Scott had said, Patrick, what are the dynamics you've seen on website traffic, visitation, and what people are looking for, kind of over the course of time in the pandemic?
Well, it's kind of changed as it's moved along. In the first month or two when this whole situation began, people were really looking for a lot of safety questions. They were looking for answers to how clean things were, how safe things were, resources related to COVID. Actually, right at the beginning, the other big spike we had on our website was due to the Tiger King, because that's based here. But no, things have transitioned. There's a lot of video content. Video has become hugely influential. We've been producing entire new series of videos of things that aren't even open yet, just to try and get people more excited about what's coming down the pipe. We're in a position right now where construction is going ahead, full steam ahead. We've got several new hotels, we've got new rides opening up, we've got a lot of new restaurants opening up, and I think that gives people just a sense of excitement about things they can come and see and do. The other thing we've kind of done to keep people more engaged is really a lot more sunshine and blue sky imagery than we may have done in the past. We always did a lot of that because it's Florida and we have sunshine, and that's why people come. But I think, when you're using visuals that are appealing and make people happy, because let's face it, we're one of the few business models in the world where our goal is to make people happy. So I think if we get those, we can then engage with them. Our newsletter signups have been increasing dramatically. Our open rates on these things are really increasing dramatically. So it's giving us a way to engage a lot more. And then I think one of the other ways then we're transitioning outside of the website that I think Scott touched on when we were talking the other day was social media. The power of social media and people's engagement with social media is been the best way for us to connect directly with potential travelers.
So I don't know if you saw the question from Kevin McGeever, our friend at Visit Florida. Mm-hmm. He's another passion of yours and certainly his, and says, "Go Leeds." So football.
Good time, Kevin. Sorry, I didn't hear that, Will. Could you say again?
Football, American soccer is a passion point that you've tapped into internationally that you're carrying over into your marketing efforts too. And how is that working? And how that's an international play, but you're sticking with it.
Well, it brings back to the point that Rachel made earlier. Well, a lot of the stuff we're doing right now is low funnel and is, Adara, Sojourn, Expedia, Epsilon, Conversant, those type of avenues. We do still have to look at the long-term future. And one of the deals we set was with an English soccer team, not my team, but their general manager is a supporter of my team. But it's just a way for us to really connect still with the fans. And we know that, from looking at the bookings, people are still moving the bookings that they couldn't take this summer, moving into next year. And it just gives us a great way, again, through emotion, because, again, sports is emotion. It's just a great way for them to connect. This started out with them, and I'll just give a quick rundown of this, of how you can do a really cool partnership with a team in another country. Started off as a really small partnership where we were sponsoring a few ads here, a couple of hospitality events. Now we do the halftime show for every home game. They've brought over their entire first team to practice here with the Tampa Bay Rowdies. We've managed to set up an academy where they now coach the local kids here. They loan players to the Rowdies, not right now, obviously, because of restrictions, but there's a player interchange. The Rowdies have been over to the UK to play. We can do events in major stadiums over there. So it's taken a really small little idea and turned it into what's now become, a pretty large international partnership. And they have fans around the world, and they're on TV every week. So it's a great way to get our message out to a whole audience that otherwise we probably would not be able to afford to reach in that way.
Yeah, and it works. I still follow Fulham Football Club and love seeing what they're doing. It's really, really interesting and on how we can play. And second of all, I want to applaud you for continuing to play in the international space, because that's a market that's awfully tough right now, but it's going to come back, and it's going to come back.
If we don't keep working with those partners and with those airlines, with the international lift that's going to go both ways, how are we ever going to stay top of mind? We know this is going to end at some stage. Whatever the new rules are going to be, people will want to travel. We know there is a pent-up demand for it. If we don't remain top of mind for that audience, then they're going to go somewhere else. So selfishly, it's the best thing to do.
Absolutely. And kind of circling again, kind of playing that passion point idea and kind of pushing it forward for a destination marketer as we're now in this, and you rattled off a list of different partners that have been really, really powerful partners for DMOs over the course of this epidemic. And I think again, it's getting down and really understanding what is motivating consumers. And I thought, Rachel, as you're going down and working with your clients and understanding that motivation has changed, what kind of advice could you give a DMO on what is creating engagement today that probably was not necessarily a 6 months ago?
I think, that's a great question. I think, a lot of the content and a lot of the messaging that we've seen in the past is, presenting itineraries, big cities, going to restaurants, going to museums, doing things indoors. A lot of what we're seeing now in terms of, trying to adapt and trying to keep up with everything that's changing. A lot of the strongest campaigns that we're seeing right now are really being sensitive to what people want right now, which is, road trips or outdoor experiences. And I think that there's a lot of creative ways that destinations can tie in what's actually happening in the world with what their passion points are, right? So if you're someone that likes museums and culture, maybe there's some sort of cultural or landmark oriented road trip that you can take. If you like, the downtown restaurant scene, maybe there's a virtual or a recipe guide of things to do in this particular destination through food. If you like music, maybe you hold an outdoor, online or outdoor concert and you promote that. So I think, a lot of what we're seeing now is just trying to adapt these key messaging points that every destination has. Everyone wants to talk about their food. Everyone wants to talk about what makes them so special. But I think that there's always going to be a way to adapt that into what is relevant and what is, ultimately safe for travel right now. And we're seeing that, we see even just in some of the campaigns and the accounts that I manage, we're seeing a lot of really strong engagement with messaging about how to be a more responsible traveler or how to travel more sustainably, or where to hit the road if you are thinking of going to this particular city, but you want to maybe not do that anymore because it's too urban. How do we expand that outward to more destinations that maybe you haven't heard of before, but you like going to this other destination that's bigger? So how can we expand that outward and maybe, not have travelers all be in the same place at the same time? I think that there's a lot to be said about those lesser known places that maybe people might not know of. Like, you might know Los Angeles, but have you heard of Solvang, or have you heard of, Santa Barbara or Joshua Tree or any of those places? So how do we talk about that, and how do we collaborate, as you all mentioned earlier, to get that messaging across? Because I think in the past, people were competing for visitation, right? Now it's just about how do we reopen all together and get local communities, drive markets, fly markets, all really thinking about us and keeping us top of mind in a way that makes the most sense for what's actually happening now.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Patrick had talked earlier about kind of regional collaboration and these passion points, and the idea is that there's a lot of communities that don't have like as much of a cooperative spirit as maybe Scott has in Tampa with the city pass passes and things like that. But you're trying to curate new product in a market that speaks to consumers and passion. So it could be a beer trail, but if you're in a community that only has 2 micro brew pubs, it's kind of hard. And in the old era of tourism marketing, you would only promote businesses in your destination. And Richard, I've over the course of this last couple of weeks starting to hear some more examples of stringing together the beer trail across multiple counties and multiple regions of multiple areas in a region. And is that something that you're seeing happening more often, and kind of creating a collaborative product that goes way beyond the confines of your city, county, or state?
Yes, and yes. What's really, I think people are really understanding is that even if they can have that visitor for one day in their community for an overnight stay, in the hotels, or a bed and breakfast, or an inn, or a resort, or even an RV parking campground, because as we know, that's the Great American Road Trip is really taken off this pandemic period in our lives, because people can travel within their own space and feel safe. And so there's this whole entity of new product being developed that also is kind of around the seasons. An example would be, we're in the fall season, it's harvest season, it's Halloween, Thanksgiving. It's the time to be outside, really enjoying all of nature's wonders and abundance here across the country. It doesn't matter where you are. And so some of the work that we've been doing, in the Pacific, in the Northeast, it is, the colors are absolutely amazing this year. And what's also happening in the Midwest, around the harvest period, and also in the Pacific Northwest, it's time for apples, it's the time for cranberries, and all these amazing things that are the bounty of the season. So this creates new product for VIP experiences, culinary experiences. Agritourism is really taking off, where some folks didn't have it before. The beer trail, the wine trail, the bourbon trail, that's a form of agritourism. So you're actually seeing where it's created, where the hops are grown, where the barley is grown, where it comes together, and where you have this amazing, adult libation and sometimes childlike or child-friendly beverages as well. So this is, it is really strange. And the seasonal side of it is really important. I think Rachel will probably see this as well. And Patrick is, when you're thinking about from the DMO perspective as to how you're sourcing that, visitor through the partners, Thanksgiving travel this year will not have the peaks and valleys that we had last year, as the same way with Christmas travel, or the, New Year's, or, Hanukkah, because people are working from home. They're already doing the work, staycations. And so you don't have to wait till the Tuesday of Thanksgiving to leave to go visit family on Thanksgiving. You can be there 2 weeks before. So the airports are already, gearing up for that they won't have the peaks because traffic's not there, number one. But number two, Amtrak is doing the same thing. And so are the car rental companies, saying, look, we're not going to have the peaks and valleys of the holiday period that we had. So
Right.
being able to market around that seasonally, I think is also going to be interesting to see how the new product and the product that can be developed seasonally versus just an ongoing, this product's available every single day. It's about what's fresh and new now. And why should you leave your house, get in the car or get on the plane and come to us now? Don't wait.
Right.
That's
I
really what
want
it's going to be all
to
about.
come back to that seasonal conversation because I think that's really important. But first, I want to go to Scott because you've participated in from many levels of different organizations with this kind of concept of co-opetition, right? With the Tampa Trio and the City Pass and I guess if we're talking to destinations that don't have that already kind of baked in, kind of some of the keys to making those cooperative things work and become win-win situations so that they'll be strong enough to last. We want to create partnerships that are strong enough to last the good times, not just out of desperation in the bad times.
Right.
And the keys that you've seen happen in Tampa.
Yeah. Well, I have been involved in a lot of cooperative ticket products in the different destinations I've worked in. I've always believed that we're stronger together. We do compete to a certain degree, but in certain market segments, we can collaborate and be stronger together. City Pass is a great example of that for the tourist market. City Pass is not a locals ticket product. It's a tourist ticket product, and they have to be in market at least 3 or 4 days for it to make sense. Well, smaller attractions have a hard time getting the tourist in through their doors. A lot of them are very much local market focused. So a product like City Pass allows you to really reach that long haul tourist and longer length of stay tourist in that particular case. There are other ticket products. You mentioned the Tampa Trio. That's where the Florida Aquarium and Zoo Tampa and the Museum of Science and Industry collaborated together to go in and leverage tourist tax dollars, TDC dollars, that they would provide us because together we're strong enough to bring tourists into the Tampa Bay region and Tampa Bay market. So, both of those products have a specific purpose and a specific market segment that we're targeting there, and funding sources that we can't afford to get into on our own. So City Pass puts up a tremendous amount of marketing support to promote Tampa as a world-class destination and to promote the 5 great attractions that we have here, including Busch Gardens, which kind of drives the whole product itself. But so stronger together. That's really been what I've always advocated for in working with other attractions.
We've always talked about how you create a program where 1 + 1 is 3, 4, 5, like the ultimate co-op programs. But what kind of advice would you have for somebody that is actually reaching out of their market and out of kind of their comfort zone, and developing a program like this? Is it still the same thing? Let's build something together that we can all promote and hit at it from a lot of different angles. And then kind of a follow-up question to that is, how do you manage the economics of that? Is it just a marketing campaign of the zoo trail, or is it is it combining on marketing? It doesn't have to be ticketing, but it could be, I suppose.
Well, they all look and act different from one another. First and foremost, you have to have attractions that believe that they can be stronger together, and they're not so competitive that that it doesn't make sense for them. There are a couple of attractions here in Tampa that decided the City Pass wasn't the right product for them to participate in because they felt they were too competitive and they're going to get the tourists anyway. So you have to have that common goal and that common desire to work together to reach a certain market segment. From an operational standpoint, all of them are different. City Pass does all of the coordination, all of the marketing for the most part. I mean, we market, each of the attractions market City Pass in the ways that we can, but they generate all of the awareness and exposure worldwide, really, for the destination here. Working, of course, in conjunction with Patrick at Visit Tampa Bay, who is a major supporter of this campaign. That's the other big That's the other big component here is you have to have an advocate with the local DMO for these kind of ticket products, because they can really make or break the success of these products.
So I just personally predict that these kind of new partnerships are going to be are going to outlast the COVID. And I think I've seen so many examples coming through the last month or so of really unique creative partnerships between either competing or complementary businesses that are kind of realizing they can they can go a lot further with limited resources, which are certainly the case now. I have a great example in my hometown of Tallahassee, where kind of a local brew pub scene has sprung up, and they started the Tallahassee Beer Society, and they have a radio show, and boy, they're the first ones to celebrate the other person's new launch or the other person's new award-winning brew. I even have my Tallahassee Beer Society mask, which they're as a fundraiser. But I think these kind of partnerships that create win-win-win opportunities are going to be the future. And I have a question, Patrick. How can you, as a DMO, be a facilitator of that across any of these passion points or verticals to encourage participation and kind of help nudge them along?
Well, there's several different ways you can go through this, Will. I mean, for us, and I think we need to remember as DMOs, and I think everybody does know this as a DMO, we don't actually sell anything. It's everybody else's product. I can't set a hotel price. I can't set the price of a theme park. I can't set the price of a pint of beer in one of our breweries. But if we can, and also with us, we're a little differently than some. We're a member-based organization, so we have about 800 partners. I love it when we can put them together. We've done this on several occasions. Breweries being an easy one, obviously. When I first came on board here 5 or 6 years ago, was getting them all, even though they were already collaborative, was putting it under a brand name, being able to set up a website, being able to push it out to people. Heck, I remember the first time I went to Germany with Visit Tampa Bay, I worked with TSA to find out how many cans of beer I could take in my suitcase. And I took beers from every one of our breweries, flew to Frankfurt and did a beer tasting in the Palmen Garden in Frankfurt with media. It is our way is to do the outreach and try and bring people together. One of the points that Scott made and you were discussing with the Tampa Trio really is a marketing effort. Again, because it means we can take those 3 partners out and promote them on the road. We can co-op the dollars that are provided to them through the TDT, add our own to it, and double the size of a campaign so that we can then take them into markets that, for budgetary reasons, there's no way they could do it by themselves, or it wouldn't make sense to do it by themselves. But with our support and our marketing and some extra dollars, it gives them an opportunity to talk to others. So it's very important. It's also very important that they get along. Occasionally we're asked to bring in, we're brought in to try and, pour some oil over troubled waters and calm things down. But we're lucky. I mean, really, you look at the folks that are running each of our major attractions, they have all worked together in this business 20, 30 years in some cases. They've all worked for each other and at each other's locations. So, that friendliness does make our job easier to push them out.
Awesome. Yeah. So, shifting back to what Richard had brought up about seasonality, and this has come up many times again as we start talking in tourism marketing. I think Christmas has been in big retail, big box retail already for months, right? I mean, I've seen Christmas trees been around. I didn't think we were out of summer, and so they're clearly, retail's clearly thinking ahead into the holiday seasons. But a lot of questions in the travel tourism industry of we're 100% focused on the holiday season now, and then it's almost creating micro seasons so that we have another reason to collaborate in early Q1 of 21. And I guess, Rachel, when you look at the campaigns you're building for partners, what are the logical seasons that you're kind of clumps of time that you're starting to see your partners talking about?
I mean, in terms of right now, a lot of the messaging is currently, as Richard mentioned, focusing on fall. We are seeing a lot of messaging now around the harvest or around, California recently had a wine month. that we also celebrated here. And that is a really big deal now, I think, in my experience, more than before, because fall foliage is naturally an outdoor event. That's something that you can do in a lot of different places in the United States, and it's beautiful. I think, right now we're just entering into sort of that peak period of fall foliage. I actually went to Big Bear a week ago to try and see it for myself, and I was too early. And I think, that's a really big focus right now. I will say that in terms of traveling, in terms of planning for holiday travel, that is still something that we're very slowly starting to see brands provide content for. I think a lot of it has been sort of a wait and see what's open, waiting and seeing what's open, waiting and seeing how we might play into what people's focuses are for the holidays. As we all know, it's not going to be we're going to travel right before Christmas and get in and get out. So there's an opportunity for sure for people to be spending 1, 2, 3, or even the entire month of December somewhere else. So that's still forming right now. I think, the biggest focus right now is just getting through October, and then we'll talk about November after that. And I think, that says a lot about how nimble destinations have to be right now in terms of figuring out what the messaging is. It's not something that we can plan 6 months in advance and call it a day. It's something that we have to actively watch and see and strategize for on a weekly basis at this point. So I think the conversations about holiday marketing and holiday messaging is something we're going to be probably actively involved in figuring out with our clients in the next couple of weeks.
That it's absolutely fascinating, and how very, very different tourism marketing is today than it was 9 months ago. When you can sit here and say, Thanksgiving, which is the beginning of the holiday season, is a month and 35 days away, and we're saying no, now we're going to focus on the next 10 days of October, and then we can get to start thinking about something that's a month out. And that's a fundamental transitional shift in tourism marketing. You mentioned, Rachel, being nimble. Patrick, as you're developing your programs, is it that quick now? Or are you kind of seeing the same, let's get through October and then we'll think about the holidays?
I think we're a little further ahead than that, just because, for us, once we get through, to January, once we get into the winter is when we really get into our main season. So, we're laying in plans right now to launch in the Northeast and Midwest states, probably earlier than we would normally. We would usually start after the Christmas time, just because of the cost of and the attention that's out there. But I think one of the things that we can look for is looking at the weather. The fact that Florida's weather in the wintertime is probably better than at any other time of the year, that we can still really underline those outdoor messaging and blue sky messaging and fresh air messaging. Because I know it's for the folks in New York and Chicago and the rest of them, the pandemic has obviously kept them closer to home, but you've still been able to get outside. We know what New York's like in January, February, and so on. I think those people are going to want to get out, and I think we're targeting them now to put that in their mindset, that once they get through Thanksgiving and the holiday season, that then we will have top of mind awareness. Now, having said that, everything we're doing is digital, so everything is being changed on I wouldn't say hourly basis, but everything is being changed and moved and modified and adapted to each individual curve or how people are feeling on a particular week. This week it looks like, according to the data I've seen, slightly fewer people may travel for the holidays, but who knows how that's going to be next week or the week after. So we're really kind of playing a game where it's wait and see and act all at the same time. So it's definitely never been like this before.
No, and I guess a question for you before we move on I want to ask Richard about this seasonality piece as well. But do you think this is fundamentally changing the tourism marketing space, or are you going to get back to long planning, or do you think that this is this nimble marketing and nimble market planning is going to be kind of the DMO, the future of destination marketing.
Is that a question for Patrick or for me?
Patrick on the DMO side. Then I want to go back to you, Rick,
Cool.
on the seasonality side.
To answer from a DMO perspective, I think the nimbleness is the way it's going to be for quite a while now. I don't see that changing. There's a lot more media avenues, a lot more ways of talking to people than there used to be, and I think we're going to have to be constantly changing. And speaking as I've been in destination marketing for a while, but my entire career has been in advertising and public relations, and I actually like the challenge. I mean, we've got much smaller teams. We're having to be much more nimble. The budgets are changing. It's a very exciting time to be in the business. Where we've had record year after year after year after year for such a long time that the question started to move. What we were trying to do was beginning to change. People expected greatness. Now it's a fight for each individual dollar and each individual person, and you're going to have to be nimble to stay alive, to stay ahead.
And I think long term, it's a great thing for the travel marketers. I think you're right. We got very complacent in understanding that we were going to, we're growing, no incentive to change. But we kind of knew we had to be more nimble and be more hard hitting and quick with our marketing.
I think we were in a good position with that because again, we're Florida, but we don't have a beach, here in the destination. So we always knew that we had to be a little bit different from everyone else, and we always wanted to try new things. We always wanted to be the beta test. We were always wanted to be the lab rat and try and do something that nobody else has done. And I think that will hold us in good stead. But I think everybody's going to have to get into that type of mindset. It's not just about jamming as many bodies in before. Now you have to really look down at niche markets, target markets. There are avenues that we probably may not have reached out to before because they weren't the easy one. Well, now those people have become a very viable market and they need to get the attention that they probably deserved beforehand. So it's going to be interesting to see what changes over the next 12 months or so.
Awesome. I agree. I think this is a huge opportunity for tourism marketers. Richard, your thoughts on that concept?
Absolutely. And I think if we take it from more of like a 30,000 foot level and the work that we've been doing, collectively on this call in our own businesses, but also with our clients, that, urban, downtown, Main Street, rural, everyone has an opportunity more so today than they did, even 6 months ago. I would say even 30 days ago, because right now it is a fast moving, curated content that does need to be served up in a different way, but also being able to collaborate within your own community first, and then step out and be able to sell your wares to your other partners around the region to say, look, we've come together as a cooperative in our own community, all the different players in the tourism space, the accommodation, the dining, the shopping, the culture, the arts, the festivals, whatever it might be, as things are opening up. But to be able to package that on a regional level, because the more that you can keep people in that space, and I use San Francisco where I'm sitting as an example, but I could use Chicago or Boston or Philadelphia or Rochester, New York as another. It doesn't matter where you are in the country. There's that opportunity to do that. So being nimble, but also being a little, being a risk taker and bringing in some of your non-traditional partners that you really could not have participated before, either due to just limited funding or opportunities. Bring them in and get them into the fold now, and have them be a part of this rebirth, this recovery, this reopening. Because once you get them on board, you're going to have them on board for a much longer period of time.
Absolutely. What an amazing conversation on passion points. And I want to thank all of you. I mean, it's crazy when you have these conversations and prep calls and you figure, boy, an hour just flies by. But there was so much great insight today on the power of partnerships, on timing, the seasonality. Rachel, I love, my takeaway is, let me figure out October and then we'll start thinking about November. It's just a real indication of kind of where we are in tourism marketing today. So thank you guys again. What an amazing panel. Rachel, thank you, and Nativo for sponsoring this session. Scott, Patrick, thanks for your participation. That was just awesome. I want to remind everybody that we have a bonus session this afternoon at 3 o'clock, how the tourism landscape is changing, why identity marketers and why identity matters and the death of cookies, by David Chastain with Epsilon, formerly Conversant, who was mentioned several times today too. So great session coming up. Thank you again for your participation and all of you for your support of eTourism Summit in this crazy time. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you November 9th and 10th in person. If not, we'll be back with eTourism Summit in some version of hybrid in 2021 to pick up the conversation again. But thank you guys also very much and have a fantastic day. And don't forget to miss out on the bonus session at 3 o'clock.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.